it's Jennifer from Flux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet this beautiful Monet's Garden slouch hat. This is a really easy hat to do. We're going to be making a long rectangle, seaming it up, and then adding a brim and cinching the top. It's a super easy hat to construct. I have this lovely kind of botanical jewel tone palette, but you could easily do this in any colors you like. It doesn't necessarily have to be striped. You could do it in like a color block, like just one or two colors, solid, self-striping yarn, what have you. We're going to be using the very easy and beautiful lemon peel stitch, which is just a series of simple single crochet and double crochet stitches. Next, we'll do a single crochet brim, just really simple little brim at the bottom, just to kind of finish it off and make it look complete. Then we're going to be cinching the top. Now this hat is also very customizable. The length of your rectangle, when we do the rectangle part, will determine the circumference of the hat. And then the width of our rectangle before we seam it will determine the height. Now this is, you could make this a beanie, but we're going to be making a slouch hat out of this. So we did make it a little bit taller so it could kind of slouch a little bit. And then the brim also, I just did like a nice little band here, but you could really make it as thick or just a little edge. It's completely up to you. So you can really customize this, and we'll be talking about customizing throughout the video, the different ways you can do it as well. Our finished hat has a circumference of about 18 inches around, and just so you know that this hat has some stretch to it, so that 18 inches kind of gives a little bit as you wear it. Again, we'll talk about customizing your hat too if you need to change the sizing. Our hat has a height of 13 inches. So if you want to do a beanie, for example, you can make it a little bit shorter. We're going to be doing the slouch, so we made it a little bit taller so it can kind of slouch back a little bit. So let's get started. You need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle. A tape measure is super helpful because we're going to be making a rectangle of sorts and then seaming it up and then adding like a brim around the bottom. So this will be helpful if you need to measure the circumference of your head, etc., or the height that you need. We're going to be using a 5mm H crochet hook. This is my Furls Odyssey in the navy. I'll put the link down below if you'd like to get one for yourself. And then our yarn. Now this is going to be a companion piece to a matching scarf. So this yarn that I have here is the total yarn for both projects. So in just a minute, I'll give you the exact yardage that will be and the sizing of the project. But let's go over the colors first and kind of like substitution stuff. So this is Wander. This is also made by Furls, who make these hooks. Again, the link is down below for the hook and the yarn. And this is their worsted weight acrylic yarn. It comes in a ton of colors. It's really soft and like has like a shine to it. And I have a bunch of colors here because I really like how all these colors look together. If you need to substitute yarn, look on the yarn label in the little yarn ball picture with the number in it. Look for a number 4 medium on the yarn weight scale and look for a yarn that recommends the 5mm H crochet hook, and you'll be just fine with that. Now I have a lot of colors here. I have, we'll just go through them. This is the Agave, the Sprout, this bright pink is the Darling, the Enchanted, Atlantis, and Caspian. So all kinds of fun colors with really fun names. I love all the names. Feel free to mix up the colors and use maybe all one color or two colors, really whatever you want. I wanted to get really fun with the colors, so I picked a bunch of them. Okay, so before we begin crocheting, let's talk a little bit about the multiples. Our multiples of the lemon peel stitch that we mentioned earlier is any odd number. So what we're going to do is for our starting chain, that will determine the height of the hat. The circumference of the hat will be determined on how many rows that you work, okay? So when you do your starting chain, just keep in mind that that will be the height. So if you change anything, just be mindful of that. Now, we're going to do 43 chains, and we're going to begin by putting a slip knot on our hook. So wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop, bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up the loop, and tighten. Then we're going to do 43 chains. So to make a chain, wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 40, 41, 42, and 43. So again, this will be the height of the hat. The more chains you do, the more slouchier it will be. If you wanted more of a beanie style that's closer fitting, you can make less chains. Just kind of like, you can hold it up or just kind of get an idea by looking at it from like, okay, again, this will give you a sense of the height. So more chains will equate to more slouchiness, just as a side note. Okay, so let's begin. Our stitch pattern is very easy. We're going to do kind of a beginning row, and then we'll do a row 2, and that will be the row that you repeat for the rest of the hat. Okay, so for row 1, we're going to work a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. So this loop here does not count. We're going to go 1, 2, and then insert the hook into that second chain from the hook, wrap yarn around hook, bring up a loop. You'll have 2 loops on your hook, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. Now in the next chain, we're going to work a double crochet. So to make a double crochet, wrap the yarn around the hook, insert it into that next chain, and bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on the hook this time. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. Now, all the way across in these chains, we're just going to repeat the same sequence. So we're going to do a single crochet, then a double crochet, then a single crochet, then a double crochet, and so forth, okay? So let's do a few together. So in the next chain, work a single crochet. Next chain, work a double crochet. Next chain, work a single crochet. Next chain, work a double crochet, okay? So just continue across working those single and double crochets across. Okay, coming up to the end of the row here, we're just continuing to work our single crochets and double crochets across. So we just have a few chains left here. I'm going to get a little bit more yarn to keep us moving. And then we'll work a single crochet in that second to last chain and a double crochet into the last chain. Okay, let's move on to row 2. For row 2, we're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn our work. Now, that chain 1 doesn't count for anything because we're going to be working that very first stitch. Right at the base of that chain 1 we just did is a loop. You can kind of see it. We're going to work right into that, okay? So in that first stitch, that very first stitch there, we're going to work a single crochet to start us off. And then in the next stitch, we're going to work a double crochet. So we're going to do the same sequence we did in the last row, but we're working into stitches this time instead of chains, okay? So work a single crochet and then a double crochet. And then a single crochet and a double crochet. So as you work too, be mindful of when you work a double crochet, you're working into the single crochet from the previous row. When you work a single crochet, you're working into the double crochet from the previous row, okay? So just be mindful of that. You can sort of see this one looks a little taller than this one, so we know for this one, this is going to be a single crochet. If you kind of lose your place, it's helpful to know that. So that's going to be a single crochet, and then that next one's a little shorter, so we're going to be working a double crochet into that one, and so forth. So just work across, working a single crochet, then a double crochet all the way across. Okay, just coming up to the end of row 2, still working those single crochets and double crochets all the way across. So I'm working a double crochet, then a single crochet, and in that very last stitch, work a double crochet stitch. Just like that, okay? Now, I'm going to stick with my color for a couple more rows because I want to show you how to change colors in a little bit. We're going to switch to this color next, but I want to do 4 rows of each color. So I'm going to stick with my color for a little bit longer, and then when we get ready to switch colors, I'll show you how to do that. So for the rest of your slouch, until it's comfortable enough to wrap around your head like a cylinder, you're going to keep repeating row 2 over and over and over again. When we return, we're going to be switching colors and learning how to do that. But after that, in the next part of the video, I'll give you some dimensions and sizing for what worked for the hat that I'm making. But I'm going to work a couple more rows. We're going to switch colors and move right along. Okay, we're just coming up to the end of our row once again. And I'm going to end that on a double crochet stitch. Same thing we've been doing all along here. And now we're ready to switch colors. So what I like to do when I switch colors, oh, again, as a side note, we worked 4 rows of the pattern, okay, for our hat stripes. If you want your stripes to be thicker, just work more rows. If you want thinner stripes, work less rows. So I like to, when I switch yarn, just cut the yarn and tie the new one right on. If you have a preferred way that you like to join a new ball of yarn, feel free to do it that way. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut our yarn and we're going to fasten off. Wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop. Now we're going to grab our new color and join the new yarn. Okay, so all we need to do is reinsert the hook back into that stitch that you just worked, grab the new color, hook it right on, and then bring it through. Tie that yarn right on there. And as a side note, these colors are just so pretty. They're just like jewel tones. And then we're going to scoot those tails out of the way. Now, reinsert your hook back into that same stitch, bring up a loop, and now we're ready to go. So all you have to do is, let me just zoom out a little bit here. All you need to do is chain 1 and turn your work and just keep repeating row 2, okay? So do a single crochet into that first stitch, double crochet into the next stitch. Just repeat row 2 over and over and over again. All right, so what we're going to do is just keep repeating row 2 on our own, and you're just going to keep working it. Now again, this is the height, so you can see how this is going to go around the head and be a little slouchy. And you're just going to keep working rows until it can wrap comfortably around the head. Now you want it to be snug but not tight. You don't want it to be too loose. You want it to like fit the head comfortably, okay? Because you want it to be able to stay on. You don't want it to be falling off, but at the same time you don't want it to be like squeezing your head either, okay? So just keep repeating row 2 over and over and over again until you have this cylinder shape that you can wrap comfortably around your head. When we rejoin, I'll give you some dimensions of what we've come up with, and we'll keep going with our hat. Okay, we're coming up to the end of the row here, just working those last few stitches. And we're going to work that double crochet at the end, just the same thing we've been doing. And now we have a rectangle that is large enough to wrap comfortably around our head. Just to give you some dimensions, this is about 12.5 inches wide. So this will later, if we turn it, it's going to be the height of our hat. And however wide you make it will be the slouchiness factor. And then the length of our piece, if we grab our tape measure, now this is definitely also a customizable part, but if we measure from where we began all the way to the edge where we stopped, it's about 18 inches, okay? Now, when I wrap this around, this wrapped comfortably around the head, but it does have some stretch to it, so definitely take that into account also. So when you're done, what you'll want to do is, I have just enough yarn here to seam it, okay? So what I'm going to do is make sure you don't have any tangles here, because what we're going to do is bring this through the loop to kind of fasten off before we seam. So just make sure you're tangle free, which I don't seem to be, so I'm going to get my tangles out. Just kind of straighten everything out, and then pull your loop a little, wrap it, the yarn around the hook, and then just bring it through that loop here. Just nice and easy. And you can fasten off that way. You want to leave this intact because we're going to use it to seam, and because it's the same piece of yarn, it automatically matches, okay? So what we're going to do is bring the other edge up and make like a sandwich. And then we're going to grab our needle and the other end of our yarn. So you want to go back down to the other end here. And this might be way too long, but I'd rather have a little bit more than not enough. But just thread your needle, and then you're just going to hold your edges together. Now this end we can take care of later, but we're going to just hold our edges together and just go right in with our yarn and sew it up, okay? Okay, so you're just going to hold your edges together like a sandwich, making sure everything lines up, and you're just going to seam it all the way across. So just, you know, really simple whip stitch. So just go in between make sure you get both layers and both loops of each layer. So if you go into these stitches, you can see there's like a V. I'm going to go into each V all the way across and just seam it up. Okay, so just do that across, and then when you get to the end, I'm going to show you how to finish up the end, and then we're going to just add a very simple little brim to our hat next. All right, just coming up to the end with my seam here, and I like to do a couple extra stitches at the end just to make sure things are nice and strong. And then that last one you do, before you pull it all the way through and there's just a loop, send your needle through it, that loop, and it'll create a knot. And then while your needle is still threaded, you can just weave it up into this, the blue yarn up into this blue area. So just go in one direction and then come back in the other direction. Now we have some tails to deal with. I'm going to go down to the other end of our tube. We now have this tube. So you can see, I'm going to go, we have the ends down here. We'll worry about those later. But I'm going to go down to the other end. We're going to create the brim down here. But if you have any tails where you're going to do the brim, just make sure that you weave those in. Okay? So just take care of any ends on the end, this, you know, the end where you're doing your brim. Okay? So I'm just going to weave that in and snip it real quick. Now, this is where you get to make a little bit of a choice. For your brim, we're just going to be doing some rounds of single crochet stitches. So you'll want to pick one of these colors and sort of make it like a focal color. Or you can do a round of each color. You could really kind of mix it up however you want. I'm going to pick one color and do mine. Okay, the next thing you want to do, so I chose this beautiful turquoise kind of teal color. I just love that, and I think you can kind of hold it along the edge and see, get an idea of how it'll look. So what we want to do now is, this is a reversible stitch, but it will look a little different when you switch colors. So the colors where they kind of interlock here, see what side you like best. Do you like this side, or when you turn it out, do you like that side? Now I kind of like this side better, so I'm going to just turn mine this way, okay? So pick what side you like best. I like how the colors kind of interlock on this side of my work, okay? So then what you'll want to do is, we're going to take our yarn and our hook once again, and we're going to tie it into one of these areas here. So I'm going to tie mine in any stitch. Go ahead and insert the hook, hook the new yarn on, and then just tie it right in there. Now we're going to be working into the sides of our stitches. So we're just going to kind of be looking for spaces. They're not going to be stitches like we've been doing. So we're just going to tie our yarn right in there into any stitch, or any side space rather, we should call them. So go ahead and take your yarn and your hook. Let me zoom way in. And this is super simple. All we're going to do is insert the hook into that space, bring up a loop, and chain one. Okay? Then in each one of these side spaces, and they're pretty easy to see, and you can see where each row ends, it's sort of like a space. Okay? So you just want to do a single crochet in each one of these side spaces. Okay? So go into this first side space, insert the hook, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. Go into the next side space and do the same thing. And we're just going to do this all the way around, working single crochets into each side space. If you're having trouble seeing where one is, just look, kind of pull it apart a little bit and see where the row ended. So I can see there's one there. Okay, we're just working all the way around, working a single crochet in each one of these little side spaces all the way around. Now, as we add more rounds, things are going to straighten up. You can see it's a little bumpy right now because we're working into all these little spaces. But as we add another round and so forth, things will kind of straighten out more. So just work a single crochet in each side space all the way around. And when we rejoin, I'll show you how to do the next round. Coming up to the end here, just finishing these last side spaces here. And then we're going to close our round. So that first single crochet we worked, wait, I have one more. We'll just get that tail out of the way. Then we're going to close with a slip stitch in that first single crochet we worked, just like that, okay? So now what we want to do to build our brim, it's just kind of an edge right now, but to build our brim up, what we're going to do is we're going to keep working single crochets. So round 2 is a little bit easier. We're just going to chain 1 and then work a single crochet in each single crochet around, okay? So go ahead and work a single crochet just in each stitch, and this will be much easier to see. And as we work this round and subsequent rounds, however wide you want to make the brim of your hat, that's definitely going to be a personal choice. You're going to see it kind of neaten up and look more like a band, okay? So keep working. If you have some ends, you can kind of hold them along the edges you work, and that will weave them in as you go. But what we're going to do is just keep working single crochets in each stitch around. And then when we rejoin, I'll show you how to finish up round 2, and then you can just keep going on your own from there. Okay, coming up to the end of round 2, just working single crochets in each stitch. And then once you get to the end of that, we're going to join. Okay, we're just going to join with a slip stitch to close the round once again. And then to build your brim, just keep repeating round 2 over and over and over again. So right now it's if I zoom out, you can see better. Right now it's pretty narrow, but what we'll do is kind of build up a band, and so we'll have like a little kind of contrast when you wear it. Okay, so after that, just looking ahead, we're going to weave in some of these ends and kind of cinch up our hat. So we'll have like a nice, pretty slouch hat eventually. But just keep working on round 2, repeat round 2 over and over and over again until your brim is as wide as you would like it to be. You could do something small just to give it a little bit of an edge, or you could make it more substantial. I'm going to keep going with mine, and when we rejoin, I'll show you what I came up with. Okay, just working those last few single crochet stitches of the row, and I'm just coming up to the end here, and we're going to join with a slip stitch to close the round. So same thing we did to close each round, just work a slip stitch in there, and then we're going, I've already trimmed this, but we're going to fasten off. So wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop, and then just pull it tight. Now I worked 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds of the single crochet. I just wanted a very subtle band, nothing too wide or dramatic. Now you can keep going with that round and make your band wider if you like as well. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to work on the top next. But before we do that, we're going to do a few things down here at the bottom. I want to weave in some of these ends. So grab your tapestry needle and thread it. And then we're just going to go to the inside of our hat and just weave that in. Now stay in this turquoise area because you don't want your tail to show through the colorful parts that are a little bit higher up, okay? So I like to go in one direction and then come back in the other direction with my tail, and then just keep it on these inside loops though so it doesn't show on the other side. And then once you do that, you can just, you can just give your tail a little trim, straighten things out, and if you have another tail, I had 2 tails, one where I began and one where I ended with my brim. So just thread your tapestry needle once more and take care of that other end. And I have a little bit of the turquoise yarn left over here so that we can cinch up the top as well, or whatever color you have left. It's not as big of a deal on the top because we've used all the colors, so really any color would be fine to cinch up that top. So just do the same thing, go in both directions with your tail. I'm just going to tuck that in extra good. Anytime you have something that you're wearing and is stretching and moving around, you want to make sure you get those ends woven in really good. So then what we'll do is our brim is complete, so you can see that it's complete. We're going to work on the top part of our hat next. Okay, so with the brim done, the middle part done, we just have to do the top. So what you want to do is turn your hat inside out, because right now we just have a tube. And as you can see, we have a lot of ends. Now, you can do a couple things with these ends. You can take the time and weave them all in, but Sometimes I just trim them when they're going to be up inside of a hat. Now, that's completely up to you, but I'm just going to trim mine for this hat. So I'm going to just put another sturdy knot in mine, each of these, before I trim them. Now they'll be up in the inside of the hat and you'll never see them. So this part is completely up to you if you want to trim them or not, okay? So let's just kind of reinforce them a little bit, and we'll go ahead and do that. Now you can just, if you wanted to weave them in, you can just do it the same way that I have done it down at the other end of the hat, okay? Just stay, when you weave your ends in, just stay in the same color as you did before, okay? So I'm just gonna grab some scissors and just give them a little trim, just right on across. Now, remember, our hat is inside out. So all this is gonna be on the inside of our hat. Just make sure. Okay, so now grab a piece of yarn about, I don't know, 12 to 18 inches long. And what we're gonna do is we're going to, and it can be any color because we have all the colors represented here. Now, just come in from the bottom to begin. And we're just going to tie this one more end that you can either weave or trim. That's the thing about hats, is you can just kind of hide it up in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to just do a very quick running stitch. Now, running stitch is like in and out, okay? And just as you can see, I'm just doing a few per color panel. Nothing formal or fancy. We're just doing a running stitch. Now when you can't pack any more onto this needle, just pull it through. Whoops, just pull it through like that. So you can see how it's running through there. And then we're just going to continue this all around our hat, all around the top edge. Because what we're going to do with our little stitch that we're creating here is we're going to pull it tight and cinch it closed. No fancy crown or anything like that. This is going to just be a very simple hat closure. And again, we're just doing a very simple little running stitch. And our tail is kind of our marker of where we began, okay? So just take it all the way back to where you started. And we're going to use that to tie it together in a minute, okay? So once you've done your running stitch, go ahead and pull that tight. Now, when you do that, make sure all these little ends that you trimmed are sticking up and not in the other side of the hat, because the public side of the hat is where we don't want it to show, okay? Now, that tail, there it is, that we talked about a minute ago, we're going to use that to really cinch it up tight. So you can kind of really put some pressure on there. Not too tight, you don't want to break the yarn, but you can really get it nice and snug, okay? And then what I like to do too is leave that tail intact, because we're going to come back to that. I like to go across as well too, in case there's any more gaps. You can kind of make like some crisscross shapes kind of across that, and that will pick up any little gaps that your running stitch may have left behind, okay? This is an optional step just to kind of reinforce things, but make sure you end up back to your tail here. And you can just tie that together. Tie it. I would do a couple of strong knots here. You got a lot kind of riding on this one piece of yarn. You ran it through a bunch of places, and now we want to make sure it's secure. So you can just trim it or weave it. Totally up to you. Okay, once everything is cinched up, we're going to turn our hat right side out. So this will be kind of the big reveal for our cute little slouch hat here. So flip it right side out, and you can see, look at that beautiful top. Super easy, and it looks great. I've done a bunch of hats like this, and it does lay nice too at the crown. Actually, for us, we'll have a slouch. It'll sort of go down like that, okay? So get your hat all nice and straightened out, and that's it. That's how you crochet the Monet's Garden Slouch Hat. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.